What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, September 1st, 2020, starting a brand new month, and see what's going to happen here. We're coming up on the election, of course, in November, and it's getting really, really intense out there. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about today, and I'm going to talk until I run out of news, at which point we'll open the phone lines. Let's call in with your opinions, observations, questions, comments, and so forth and so on. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble. Let's get right on into it. Donald Trump might actually be accused of a conspiracy theory at this point because he was being interviewed, and he says the White House is investigating a plane loaded with thugs in black uniforms who traveled to the Republican National Convention intent on doing big damage, and claims the rioters are being funded by some very stupid rich people. Now, he refused to say where he's getting this information, and it could very well be true, but I think the perception is that Trump is going a little bit rogue here, and I'm not sure. Had I been one of his advisors, I'm not sure I would have said go with this at this particular point, because it's not presidential in my opinion. Anyway, one thing that supports this idea that outsiders are coming in, the Kenosha police are reporting of 175 people arrested since the start of the rioting. 102 live elsewhere in 44 other cities. So in point of fact, yes, people are coming from outside to take part in the festivities, for lack of a better word here. The scale of destruction waiting for Donald Trump in Kenosha. Aerial images show $30 million worth of damage to the riot-stricken city. The president just had a press conference there from Kenosha, and promised to throw $4 million in there to help them rebuild. And they're going to need it because, as it turns out, remember when all the rioters were saying, oh, it's okay for us to loot and damage, they've got insurance. Well, it turns out the insurance isn't going to cover the cost of demolishing the remains of the old buildings. The business owners are going to have to come up with that somehow, somewhere, and after that, the insurance companies will help them rebuild new businesses. But it's not quite the, get out of problems free image that the rioters were trying to put out there here. Anyway, another riot has been declared in Portland as Black Lives Matter mob celebrates Mayor Ted Wheeler's 58th birthday by setting fires outside his home and chanting "Happy Tear Gas to You" on the 95th day of demonstrations. Mayor Ted Wheeler and Joe Biden are trying to shift the blame to President Trump for the violence leading to the deadly Portland shooting. Now, Black Lives Matter Incorporated, I didn't realize they were a corporation, is threatening to rip the president out of the White House. BLM Inc. threatening to rip the president out of the White House. They say they won't wait till the next election. They're openly calling for a revolution. This is domestic terrorism on full display out in the open. And I keep hearing September 17th as the day of some kind of a major event at the White House. Okay, the Oregon State Police are back in Portland. This time they'll be sticking around. While progressives, anarchists, socialist agitators, and their woke enablers in the mainstream press blame right-wing or white supremacist groups like Patriot Prayer for the murder of one of the group's own members, the reality is that Oregon Governor Kate Brown and Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler left an opening for violence to escalate when they pulled out the state police. Regular readers may remember that President Trump and Department of Homeland Security Acting Secretary Chad Wolf finally withdrew federal troops from Portland after reaching a deal for the state police to protect a federal courthouse in the city. Soon after, Oregon's leading Democrats pulled the reinforcements. But now that a man has been killed, they're realizing the downside of pandering to the unstable anarchists. One of the things that is really troubling to me are all the people out with Antifa and Black Lives Matter who are out there screaming, if they kill one of ours, we've got to kill one of theirs. I'm glad the fascist is dead. And they're just celebrating all of this death and mayhem. And that's a very, very bad mental state, because when somebody says something like that, the crowd cheers. It's like the ancient Colosseum in Rome, when the blood gets spilled, everybody cheers. Now, Patriot Prayer leader Joel Gibson is accusing Governor Kate Brown of calling the slain Trump supporter a white supremacist to sort of justify his murder. So Joey Gibson went on Fox News on Monday night to talk about his good friend Jay Bishop, whose real name, by the way, is Aaron Danielson, after he was murdered by Antifa in cold blood on Saturday night. Aaron J. Danielson was gunned down by a far-left Antifa member, Michael Reinhold, I think that's how it's pronounced, in Portland, in cold blood. And apparently, 48-year-old Michael Forrest Reinhold has identified himself as 100% Antifa all the way. He's been arrested at previous Antifa riots in Portland and matches the description of the shooter. So police have not publicly named him as a suspect, but the police are definitely investigating this guy. Reinhold has also described his support for Black Lives Matter as part of a war that will involve casualties. Now, Piers Morgan is out there saying tone-deaf Democrats are heading for another election disaster if they don't stand up to violence on the street and continue to let Trump scare middle Americans with the anarchists coming to get them. Oh. 6 Minnesota Democratic mayors are now endorsing Donald Trump, saying we don't recognize the Democratic Party that has moved so far to the left. And there's been a 60% increase in African-American support for Donald Trump in just the last 2 weeks. Now, getting on back to Kyle Rittenhouse, his attorney is saying his client acted in self-defense. The legal defense fund that's been set up for him has raised over $900,000. GoFundMe wouldn't allow a page for him, but Christian, hang on a second, it's Christian Consciousness or something. It's a Christian-based Christian crowdfunding site has set up a crowdfunding page, and they're in communication with his primary attorney. So that would be over at givesendgo.com, and you can find that out there. All right. As I mentioned before, for months and months, Black Lives Matter activists and media supporters are saying business owners who saw their livelihoods destroyed during riots shouldn't get upset because they've got insurance. But they're finding out the insurance won't cover the demolition costs of the buildings destroyed by Black Lives Matter rioters. Always a loophole here. Tamaris Bohannon was a 25-year-old St. Louis, Missouri police officer. He was shot in the head Saturday, and he died Sunday evening of his injuries. Over at the National Hockey League, one of the team owners says the team is losing fans over the Black Lives Matter support. Well, good. I'm sorry, but good you're losing business. Now, here's a good one. NPR is openly promoting a book that celebrates and encourages looting. The book is called In Defense of Looting, A Riotous History of Uncivil Action. It's a book written by Philadelphia-based Vicky Osterweil, and it currently sits on top of the Amazon new release charts. The book encourages and makes excuses for property destruction and riots that are currently taking place across the country. And for that, it was featured and promoted in an NPR article out last week called One Author's Argument in Defense of Looting. But as the post-millennial puts it, this book promoting riots is the #1 new release on Amazon, a mega corporation that benefits every time a local shop gets torched. Okay, story coming on out of Blabberbuzz. Violence won't end if Trump wins. After denying protests, Democrats are blackmailing the voters. And we're seeing the implications in Biden's comments about, how if Trump wins, the violence is not going to stop. Now, they're trying to make it sound like the violence is being caused by Trump, but that's certainly not the case. These are liberal Democrats who are out there. So President Trump was accused by Democrats for causing the violence many cities have been suffering from in a twist since they've supported the BLM protests that have turned into riots since June. Democrats say that Trump is inciting racial tensions and unrest to use them in favor of his campaign as he praised supporters who gathered in Portland, Oregon, which resulted in the death of a man shot by a rioter of the left. Trump said he will visit Kenosha, Wisconsin. In fact, he's there right now. Said he gravely affected by the shooting of a black man by the police. Though Democrats have motivated the radical left to take flight, they are now pointing that, as ironic as it may sound, enraged protesters will not be calmed unless Trump leaves office, which could be seen as a form of blackmailing voters. And yes, that's exactly what it is here. Portland progressives, meanwhile, talk about ingratitude. Portland progressives have declared war on Mayor Ted Wheeler, demand his resignation over his lack of leadership. All righty. Over in Great Britain, Black Lives Matter protest in London, an activist called for a revolution in the UK, demanding the establishment of a black militia to stand up to racism, which she claims thrives on capitalism. And on Sunday, hundreds of Black Lives Matter protesters marched from the Marble Arch in Hyde Park to Parliament Square outside the Houses of Parliament in London. In a Breitbart London exclusive video, one of the speakers at the rally, a black woman dressed in paramilitary-style garb, is seen leading chants of "Take it to the streets, blank the police, and no justice, no peace." Anyway. Also in Great Britain, Black Lives Matter radical Sasha Johnson announces the creation of the first black-led political party in the UK. At a so-called Million Man March in London, which saw approximately 400 people actually show up, Sasha Johnson, a leader of the Oxford branch of Black Lives Matter, unveiled her new political party, the Taking the Initiative Party, or the TTIP. In a video released by the conservative student organization Turning Point UK, the far-left activist said that even though the leadership of the new party will be black, she claimed this isn't just a party for black people too, it's a party of the working class. All right, this next thing is really kind of scary, and I hope it's not the start of a trend, but the FBI has warned Chicago area law enforcement that nearly 36 street gangs have formed a pact to shoot on sight any cop that has a weapon drawn on any subject in public, this according to ABC7 in Chicago. According to an August 26 situation information report from Chicago-based FBI officials, members of these gang factions have been actively searching for and filming police officers in performance of their official duties. The purpose of which is to catch on film an officer drawing his or her weapon on any subject and the subsequent shoot on sight of said officer in order to garner national media attention. Boy, they'll get that too. If these reports are true, you're going to see Chicago law enforcement officers vote with their feet and get jobs elsewhere, retire early, and leave the city in an even worse mess than it already is. Now, Tucker Carlson asked a very, very, very good question of the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf. Why haven't we seen the leaders of Antifa and Black Lives Matter arrested and charged? He asked why the feds aren't acting quicker against people involved in the riots in major U.S. cities. Carlson questioned Wolf on whether he thinks DHS is getting enough help from the Department of Justice, asking why haven't we seen the leaders arrested and charged for conspiracy under, say, RICO, like the heads of the mafia families were. Well, you don't even need RICO. The USA Patriot Act defines the use of violence to coerce a change in one's politics as an act of terrorism. So I think Antifa and Black Lives Matter are terrorist groups. Their leaders are terrorists, and they should be prosecuted under the law. Turning to our domestic politics, Biden's first in-person post-convention campaign event does not live up to its billing, not even close. Apparently, hardly anybody really showed up. Most of them were reporters sitting inside social distancing circles here, and very quickly reminded everybody about why Biden is being kept in his basement by his handlers. This is a direct quote about the COVID-19, and he said, quote, "COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. It's just when you think about it," end quote. He actually said that. There's a video of it. It's gone viral all over the net. And so basically, Joe Biden escaped from his basement today just long enough to remind everybody why he's staying out of the public eye. And it's now been announced that Biden is now off the campaign trail, and some public events he had canceled, planned for the immediate future, have now been canceled. All righty. Bombshell new documentary seeks to expose Joe and Hunter Biden's secret Chinese business dealings. So it's not just the Ukraine that is out there. Apparently, speaking of the Ukraine, Nancy Pelosi's son was also a board member of the energy company, traveled to Ukraine, and Nancy was featured prominently in the company's ad. So they're all dirty. Quid pro Joe and his son Hunter are not the only Democrat family members cashing in on their prominent positions. Nancy Pelosi's son Paul is also on the board of an energy company, traveled to Ukraine. Now, here's where we really need to pay attention to what's going on here. This is a story that was in your destination now. And a whistleblower has come forward. A top Democratic operative has blown the whistle about how prevalent voter fraud is for mail-in ballots. And this gentleman, who stayed anonymous, told the New York Post that mail-in ballot voter fraud is the rule, not the exception, because he has spent years manipulating elections on behalf of Democratic candidates. The fraudster told his Post his dirty work includes everything from municipal to federal elections in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. In fact, the operative, whose resume was confirmed by the Post, claimed his team has manipulated most elections in the Garden State. There's no race in New Jersey from city council to U.S. Senate that we haven't worked on. I worked on a fire commissioner's race in Burlington County. The smaller the race, the easier it is to do. Now, the reason this is important is because we have this pro-Biden Democratic analytics firm is saying that Trump may appear to win on election day by a landslide, but that as the mail-in ballots are counted for days and weeks afterwards, Biden will win. I mean, they basically legalized retroactive ballot box stuffing. They don't even need to stuff the ballot boxes ahead of the election. They just have election day and say, oh, Biden needs to win in this and this and this state. Send out the trucks. I got to tell you, this could actually trigger a civil war. As angry as this country is, I mean, for Trump to win on election day and then a week later they say, no, actually it's going to be Biden. I think that would really... I think that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Okay, getting over to Hillary Clinton, who's still out there in the sidelines, as it were. Attorney Roberto Yazguirre, who has represented many Gulf cartel bosses, has donated $2,000 to Hillary Clinton's election efforts. When Mexican drug lord Juan Garcia Abrego was extradited to America, Yazguirre, it's Yazguirre. Zaguirre was his lawyer. Abrego was the boss of the Gulf cartel until he was arrested in 1996. There's a lot of drug money floating around the American political system. It's like the old days of the rum runners and the gangsters during Prohibition. All right, let's talk about COVID-19. Children under the age of 10 are 20 times more likely to die in an accident than of COVID-19, and even the seasonal flu is twice as deadly to them, according to the latest study. The research adds to growing evidence that youngsters are not vulnerable to serious illness from the disease. Scientists led by Newcastle University also found under 10s are twice as likely to die from flu than they are from the coronavirus. When looking at the risk of COVID-19 deaths in those between the ages of 10 and 19, it was 3 times lower than the risk of dying from an injury. AstraZeneca begins the final trials of Oxford University coronavirus vaccine. They're enrolling 50,000 people worldwide, 30,000 in the US, and the company has signed a £15 million manufacturing deal. And here's an interesting little article, and it came out of naturalnews.com. Coronavirus batters New York City's luxury real estate market. And they're saying the ongoing pandemic has pounded New York City's luxury real estate market, which is seeing values fall at a rate that surpasses that of both the Great Recession of 2008 as well as the period immediately after 9/11. New York City home sales in general plummeted 50% in July, with residential sales totaling only $2.67 billion compared to the $5.3 billion recorded in the same month last year. The slump in home sales is forcing realtors to slash prices, especially for homes in some of the city's most posh districts. Well, it's certainly easy to blame it on coronavirus, and I've seen a few articles that do that, but you also have, you know, the surging homeless population and all the problems that's causing. You have the increasing taxes and the promise of even higher taxes, especially on the city's wealthy. And I think you're going to see the city just empty out of all the upper class people. And they're going to be heading for rural America, where it's cheaper to live and standard of living is really, really good. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and a friendly nudge and reminder. and punch in the shoulder that Republic Broadcasting Network is still in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser. We don't have large corporations giving us lots of money along with a list of stories that we should not cover. We don't have any philanthropists who feel that telling the truth deserves any kind of financial support. So we rely on you to keep Republic Broadcasting on the air. And so the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, getting on back to the news here. Bill de Blasio suggests that indoor dining won't return to New York until there's a COVID-19 vaccine, even though New Jersey is allowing diners inside this week. Now, Bill de Blasio is also delaying laying off 22,000 city workers, which is good for them as well here. Okay, now turning to the international news. 11 plus are dead in Israel's latest bombing of Damascus. Israel's out there bombing everybody. Israel's also out there sort of betting that Hezbollah is not going to fight back for the people that Israel's killed. I wouldn't take that bet, by the way. Belarus, over in Belarus, the NATO lobby acknowledges that its color revolution has failed. And Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko had offered President Putin of Russia to finally implement the long-delayed union state that will unite Belarus with Russia. That's Putin's motivation. In exchange, he wanted full Russian backing for shutting down the U.S.-led color revolution against him. Putin accepted the deal. Lukashenko and his police will not hang from a pole. Russia will take care of the problem, and the union state will finally be established. So the U.S. foreign policy's lost another one here. How should the European Union respond to rising Greece-Turkey tensions? Because they're on the edge of war. Two most powerful EU nations have adopted a good cop, bad cop approach that conveys different and confusing messages and has not prevented escalation. Chancellor Angela Merkel, with the added authority of holding the EU's 6-month revolving presidency, has launched a German initiative to prevent escalation, reduce tensions, and overcome long-standing conflicts. But French President Macron, while not eschewing mediation, has opted for a show of force, sending French naval vessels into disputed water to counter the presence of Turkish warships. I think they're making things worse rather than better here. Thousands of Africans are dying in horrifying Saudi detention camps. Thousands of Africans have been trapped for months in horrifying detention centers in Saudi Arabia, driving many to commit suicide, while others have died of heat stroke, according to a report. The Sunday Telegraph published cell phone images of shirtless, emaciated African men lying in tight rows on the floor in a bare room with barred windows. One image showed a man who hanged himself from a window grate, while another showed what appeared to be a blanket-wrapped corpse in the middle of the room, a man the migrants say died of heat stroke. Amazing here. Over in Korea, remember Kim Yo-jong, the sister of Kim Jong-un? And she's kind of disappeared from the public. She had been gaining publicity and celebrity status in his absence. And recently, when it was rumored that he was sick, if not dead, it looked like she was going to be running the show here. Then she's just sort of vanished into thin air. She's been basically out of the public eye for about a month now. And a lot of people are wondering what's going on. Did Kim Jong-un get jealous for popularity? The hedge fund, economic news now, the hedge funds are starting to pile into the Big Short 3.0. In other words, they think that, I mean, the stock market's been going up and going up and going up. They had a bad Friday, but they had a good day today. And everyone's expecting, though, there to be a correction. And so the hedge funds are all starting to engage in short selling to get positioned to take advantage of a big plunge in the near future. Meanwhile, over at Liberty University, they're ordering an investigation into all facets of operations during Falwell's tenure as president. Here's what's going on over there. Jerry Falwell Jr., who has resigned amid this sex scandal involving his wife and former business partner and pool boy. He's got a really sweet termination deal in his contract. But if the Liberty University can find that he did something unethical, immoral, or even illegal, then they can get out of that. I think it's something like $10 million. They really don't want to have to pay him here. Okay, homeless Romanians bed down on makeshift mattresses and cardboard boxes outside the Mercedes showroom in Park Lane after hotels housing thousands of rough sleepers during the pandemic evict them as they return to business. Well, we all knew that was going to happen. They were putting the homeless up in these hotels to get them off the streets, but now the hotels are reopening for business. They're cleaning up, sanitizing. Anyway, we got to take a break for commercials. We're going to open the phone line, 800-313-9443, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones here to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I sent you an email. It's a subject on the CBC. It's an analysis, right? Oh, by the way, there's no mention on the CBC yet, hoping it'll happen, of that CDC report about the 6% COVID cases. Also that 90% of people tested, they probably have COVID, so little that they can't even transmit it. I haven't heard anything there's nothing on the CBC about that yet, but it is Pravada, right?
Yes.
So this story on the CBC, which comments were open for, and I cannot comment on because I've been banned, has to do with modern monetary theory, they call it, which is basically a country's central bank creates the currency as a loan at interest, and the governments can go to that bank and use it. That sound familiar?
Yeah, it sounds very, very familiar.
Modern monetary theory. So in the 70s, this G7 thing was taking off.
Yes.
I think it was G6 at the time. Canada got involved. Pierre Elliott Trudeau got us involved in that nonsense. And one of the stipulations of being in it is that governments couldn't go to their central bank to finance deficits. They'd have to go to private banks.
Yes.
So this whole idea that a government can go to its own central bank to finance anything is nothing new. And in fact, I mean, it's as old can be. But they make it sound like it's new, because like a lot of governments all over the world were able to do this, against some kind of trade negotiations and whatnot, because of the devastation of it all. So what I would like to know is, when is someone going to put 2 + 2 together and realize that we don't even need the banks? We have treasuries.
Yes.
Lincoln did it. Your country did it for a long time. Prospered.
Well, the whole point of the modern monetary theory, the whole point of private central banks, is to enslave the nation and its people to debt forever.
Yes.
You have all these people out there in the streets writing about slavery, and they don't realize they're still slaves today to the bankers.
Well, I mean, they may be slaves to the bankers, but they don't think so, because they probably don't even have real jobs. They're getting paid by Black Lives Matter or some of these stupid rich people that Trump mentioned.
Yes.
Mike, is that the first time that you've ever heard a president of the United States or any other world leader, a leader from a country, actually say that this stuff going on in this country is being funded by rich folk?
Yes. No, it's the first time I've heard somebody say that. And as I said, I agree with him. I think the way he said it, though, is going to be used against him.
Any way he could have said it will be used against him.
He could have been a little bit more diplomatic.
That's what I love about the guy, that he's not. He just tells it like it is.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't like that. They call him crass and whatnot. You know, he's a peasant. You know, one of these snake oil salesmen. No, he's not. He's just a regular person. He doesn't really care.
Well, that's why I like him. You know, he's just a regular person who just happens to have a few $1 billion. And, you know,
it just happens. Yeah. Happens to have. So anyway, getting back to the banking, you know, like this is an absolute scam. And you know what's really sad, Mike? I actually read some of the comments, right? I browse through them really quickly early in the morning, and a few of them I read all the way through.
Yeah.
Most people, when I say most, because I haven't found any on that particular story, didn't even mention that we used to do this, that Canada used to do this before the G7.
Yes.
All levels of government went to the Bank of Canada.
And it was interest-free.
Yes, well, interest-free or very low interest, right?
Yes.
Whatever the market, whatever it is, I think it's 0.25% right now.
Yeah.
So, and then that interest that is paid on that goes directly to the government. You know, minus whatever it costs to do this stuff, you know, to run the central bank.
Yes.
I still think central bank is a scam.
Yes.
Because, you know, as you and I both know, that all of this is being called by all of this is being overseen by the BIS.
Yes.
Bank of International Settlements, the central bank or central bank. Anyway, that's all I have for you. Other than the last time I called in, I mentioned something about people glorifying violence and whatnot and going around shooting people. A couple of your callers didn't like that. I don't know why. I'm not a violent person. I don't think violence begets violence, period. I mean, sometimes you have to defend yourself, yeah. But to actually go out and look for trouble, that's a totally different thing.
Yes.
I realize that your country is under siege right now.
Yes.
And it is.
Yes, it is.
Donald Trump. When I read that this morning, Mike, I loved it when he actually said, you know, stupid rich people are funding this. I love that. I love that. That's all you need to do. People need to realize that, yes, this is happening in our country, and it has to stop. Most of the people, you know, that are doing this, they're idiots. They don't know any different. They're just looking for like a paycheck because, I mean, there aren't any jobs.
No.
So, you know, you have to keep that in mind. Like you said a little while ago in your show, why aren't the leaders of Antifa and Black Lives Matter being picked up? Why? They're useful idiots, aren't they?
Yes.
Yep, they are. Thanks a lot, Mike.
All right, thanks a lot for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, thanks, Mike. Hey, no, I just want to talk a little bit about insurance. I mean, everybody is paying insurance. I mean, we got homeowners insurance, we got property insurance, we got boat insurance, we got car insurance, we've got health insurance, we've got life insurance, I mean, there's insurance for everything, and we pay into this thing just continually. And I think people will be pleasantly surprised, if not surprised at all. George Soros, I believe, actually owns Geico. And I think Warren Buffett actually owns Progressive. And so it's just a pleasant surprise to find out that the same players are there. And then all of a sudden to exempt somebody from insurance after paying all the years. I mean, all of us that paid in that we never drew on, we got nothing for our value. You know?
Yeah.
Car insurance, somebody broke it. If you never used it, then you just paid these people. So now when people really need it, and they got, that's probably how George Soros made billions, and Warren Buffett, just with this fake insurance.
Well, it's certainly not hurting your bottom line. But you got to read those policies very, very closely, you know, and that's why they print them in such fine print in the hope that you won't, because there are all kinds of exclusions and stuff. Now, just to show that not all insurance companies are total bastards like are happening up in Portland here, we're with State Farm, and when we got into a car accident, they were really good. They got the car towed, they got it repaired, they got everything put back the way it was, and they did a good job for us.
They take care of some good people, but let me throw this at you and see what you say to this, Mike. What if they never mandated car insurance? Don't you think people would have been really super careful, knowing they could lose everything if they hit somebody? But they gave us car insurance, and so people drive a bit recklessly simply because they know they have insurance. I mean, does that make any sense to you at all?
Well, I think when they made car insurance mandatory, it guaranteed that the premiums were going to go up and the service was going to go down because, people no longer had competitive pricing. They didn't have the option of saying, no, that's too expensive. And, unfortunately, I think somewhere down the road, we'll see more insurance made mandatory.
Hey, so I'll leave you with this. Maybe you got an answer for this, but remember Donald Trump had his little, you knew I was a snake when you took me in? Do you know exactly why he said that? Because I think he might have been speaking to the American people.
No, it's a reference to an old story about somebody who found a pet rattlesnake and took care of it and fed it. And then one day the rattlesnake bit him. And the guy said, why did you do this after everything that I've done? And the rattlesnake, well, you knew I was a rattlesnake when you picked me up. This is just my nature. And I don't know exactly what the context was of Trump saying that. I think he was making a comment about a third party, but that's really what the reference is to.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Sebastian in Sweden. Hello, Sebastian. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I just wanted to tell you about, you probably heard about this, what happened last Friday here in Sweden. There was a Quran burning.
Yes.
In the city of Malmö, and then they started rioting. Let me give you a little background that you probably don't read about. It's that all year long, and even last year, people have been trying to burn up Swedish churches.
Yes.
Set them afire and break into them. And then it just happened again just 2 or 3 days before this Danish guy was supposed to come to Malmö and to burn the Quran. So I just got so tired that I figured that, just let them do it because it's part of the Swedes have a constitution, not as good as American Constitution. I don't think no country has a good as constitution as America, but they do, and one of them is freedom of expression. Now, the Bible's been used by artists for years and years and which I don't like. I actually shouldn't, any holy book, I think, personally. But they do have a freedom of expression here, and the Bible's been used by artists,
Mm-hmm.
as so if they had done this and not give it any publicity, I think it would have just, he would have just come and gone. But other than they refused to let him in, and they banned him for 2 years. And so his other members came over and they burned the Quran in the immigrant section of Malmö now, and it started riots all over Sweden. But it is an expression of freedom. But like I said, I think it's distasteful. But because of all the church burnings, I really didn't care. I said, let it, burn.
Mm-hmm.
Let them burn it. I don't care. Because I'm tired of these immigrants trying to burn down the Swedish churches. Although I'm not a member of the Swedish church, but that's another thing. It's not my religion, but it's I don't think it's right. So, and now police forbid people to. It's going to be against the law to put a bacon on the sidewalk if it's in front of a Muslim center or a mosque or anything. I mean, it's getting ridiculous in this country.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Swedish police act like all the police in Portland. They don't do anything. There was a gang meeting in a hotel. They didn't do anything. 40 members of 2 gangs were having a what do you call it? When they ceasefire, right? And
Yes.
the police surrounded the hotel, but they didn't do anything. They didn't arrest him or nothing. It's really getting bad. It's really getting bad in this country. So, well, I hope it gets better in America after the elections. I hope nothing happens. That's all I wanted to say about it, Swede. Take care of yourself and all your listeners.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the update and the information, and thank you for the phone call. Okay, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Amazon has launched a new product. It's called Amazon Halo. It's a health and wellness tracker that the company claims can not only track your heart rate and respiration and the rest of it, it can track your emotions by listening to the tone of your voice. So apparently this thing has some kind of a voice stress analyzer built into it. So the Wall Street Journal reports that Amazon has announced its product, and the wristband can also track body fat percentage, heart rate, and its users' activity and sleep. The product marks Amazon's first foray into the health and wellness industry, will be available for early order in the United States now. So more wearable tech that spies on you. Anyway. Charles Vaughn, 25, spent 3 months transmitting nuisance broadcast messages at a shipping port. And the messages included, enjoy the bomb and I'm going to cut your throat. Broadcasts forced Southampton port authorities to talk to vessels via mobile phones. And he was charged with sending malicious electronic communications. And the judge handed him an 18-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years. I'm not exactly sure what that means. That means he's free for 2 years and then he goes to prison for 18 months. Not really sure. It's just the way it's written here. Okay, RoboCop is here. There's a new smart police helmet. It scans for COVID-19 and uses facial recognition. And it's basically a helmet that has a heads-up display. It's called the Smart Helmet. And it can screen airport passengers for COVID-19, as well as provide the scanning officer with other vital records of the person standing in front of them. That's a little spooky, a little bit spooky. Public officials, public officials in Flint, Michigan cannot provide clean drinking water to the residents, but travelers to Bishop International Airport can get a glimpse of the new robotic cop helmets where they're currently deployed. Under the guise of screening passengers for COVID-19, the smart helmet, produced by KeyBiz based in Italy, can scan travelers' body temperatures from over 20 feet away. Okay, North American bird populations pivotal to pest control and seed dispersion have decreased by 29% in the last 49 years. This is sort of happening alongside the decline in the bee populations, which are essential for pollen dispersion. So it looks like Mother Nature is definitely falling down. All right, we got to take another break for commercial. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Michael. Can you hear me okay?
I'm sorry?
Mike, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, and you're on the air.
Okay. Hey, Mike, just following up on yesterday's call about the cancel culture and the Black Lives Matter toppling all the statues and everything, and like, for example, Christopher Columbus. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we can be taken out of context if the talk show host has to go to a break or something like that. But Mike, it's not my style to gratuitously put anybody down, and I know it's not. Mm-hmm. That's not your style. It's not the style of RBN in general. But where I was going with that, to refresh your memory, Mike, about the bridges and the luxury cruise liners coming in and out of Boston Harbor and the jets flying up. Where I was going with that is the white man's genius has blessed everybody. Going over that Tobin Bridge, I'm sure there were black motorists. And on those airplanes, I'm sure there were black passengers. And on those luxury cruise liners, I'm sure there was black folks taking a luxury cruise. So where I'm going with that is, I think most black folks have gratitude, but these Black Lives Matter people, they have a serious case of ingratitude. The white man has never used his genius to attack Africa, to kill black people. We like to kill each other. White people over in Europe, and we love to World War I, where we love to kill each other. But we've never attacked. With our superior weapons, if we hated black folks, we could have attacked Africa and wiped them out and everything else. We've never done that. We've shared all our blessings and everything. So, I wanted to be sure, Mike, that I did, and because you had to go to a break, I might have come across that I was being mean-spirited just for the sake of putting people down.
David, there's something you need to keep in mind, and that is that a lot of creative work done by blacks was literally stolen from them and credited to white people. When Scott Joplin first published his ragtime music, the credit for the music was given to the publishing company's staff arranger, and all it said on the cover was, rags picked by Scott Joplin. And the classic harpoon used on whaling ships was invented by a black man. But his owner, he was a slave, his owner took credit for the invention. So it's a little fuzzier than you like to put on out.
Yeah, I don't know, Mike. You can be an apologist for the black.
I'm not being an apologist. I'm just trying to clarify the history.
You can't be an apologist for the black. You can be an apologist for the Black Lives Matter if you want. But what I'm saying is,
I'm not apologizing for Black Lives Matter. I'm definitely not. And let's not forget George Washington Carver.
I'm trying to differentiate, between good black folks and this Black Lives Matter people.
Okay.
I can't believe that we've become so weak that we put up with that.
I would agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and I grew up with my whole life. It's been blacks have directed hatred towards me, even today. But
David, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for station identification. So we'll be back for hour number 2 after these few words. And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And before we get back to taking phone calls, I got an email here from somebody reminding me that the traffic light and the elevator were also invented by black people. Now, I'm not being an apologist for Black Lives Matter, but at the same time, this idea that the blacks aren't contributing anything to our modern technological society is simply not true. And the situation is a lot fuzzier, and we should acknowledge, their contributions. That's just fair. And if you have not seen the movie Hidden Figures, that's another example of unsung heroes, or in this case, heroines, among the colored people. Okay, anyway, let's get back to the phones here. Stacy in Florida. Hello, Stacy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you, Mike, for taking my call. I tried yesterday after hearing that man who called in toward the end of your show, but I didn't get a chance to get on. And I don't remember his name or where he was from, but he was the person that was kind of criticizing some of the callers for infighting. You remember that man?
Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to put it out there in case he's listening. It doesn't matter to me if he is or not, but I want the other listeners to hear that we don't consider your show infighting at all. In fact, you, as a former teacher, you display good credibility in keeping things under control. And when you do have...
Not always. It's a lot like herding cats.
Well, yeah, I'm saying in the circumstance when you have a couple of the callers debate each other, you do keep it under control. If it starts getting out of hand, you nail it and stop it. So, he's wrong for saying that. And he and others need to appreciate John Stadtmiller's network because he's providing us with a service that hardly anybody else is nowadays. Many of them have fallen by the wayside, as we know. So
yes.
We need to be thankful for John Stadtmiller's network and support it. And also, he had mentioned Steve Elkins was saying things that weren't true about the virus, which is also not a true statement. Steve Elkins and his wife are both very professional medical people. That he reported what he actually sees in the medical profession. It's not lies what he's reporting. It's what he and his wife see. So he's wrong on that. And also, he was saying that people on your show tend to lump everybody together and criticize and say that millennials are all bad. And that's not true. No one's painting millennials with a broad brush. We live, like you had mentioned in your last few callers have said, we're under siege. Our country's under siege. So these are dark times, Mike. And so dark times call for discussions about dark things, right? Dark issues. And that's why we tend to discuss the dark issues, because they're there in our face, but we're not putting certain groups down while we're discussing the dark issues that are confronting us. We're just discussing, and all of your callers, Tom in Florida has lots and lots of good info to share, and Mark in North Carolina is right on. And we all contribute good things in the effort to communicate on an open forum like John provides us with. So that's pretty much all I have to say, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you very much for those kind words, and we're definitely going to be appreciative of those. And, we do try and keep our audience happy and content and informed. But, at the same time, we can't pander to everybody who's got a complaint, because sometimes they're just a little bit out there. Anyway, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Don in Arizona. Don, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Mike. There have been some very, very, very smart black people throughout history, like George Washington Carver. And he was an individualist too. He just started out as a gardener, and he just started looking around. Hey, I can plant. He was, he's like a typical black person that worked as a gardener for some white people. And he started getting creative with it. Well, look, I can do this, and I can graft. I can do different things. And they could see he was a genius. And finally, he went up to Iowa, and he started. They let him in the university up there, and he did all that stuff with the peanut and everything. And but then later, he was. He didn't get along with Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was more of a politician type.
Yes.
He didn't go along with that. He said, "The hell with that," So they kind of squared off with each other. But it's often been mentioned that the people came over here as slaves, but white people, indentured servants, they, for all intents and purposes, they were slaves too.
Yes.
And, a black slave, could possibly somehow get a hold of some money and buy himself out of slavery and stuff. But they asked Muhammad Ali. He went to Africa. Probably the most famous black person in history, Muhammad Ali. Loved all over the world. He went to Africa and fought the rumble in the jungle against George Foreman.
Yes.
They asked him what he thought about Africa. He said, "I'm glad my granddaddy got on that boat." As America, he said, you always got, you got a lot more stuff going for you. That's what he had to say about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, as far as the political situation here, it looks more and more like Trump is gonna win. He's got the Minnesota Democratic mayors on his side. People, law and order that's what won it for Nixon. And the majority of the people just don't like riots. Let's face it. I mean, some of them, and the Democrats seem to like it. I mean, that's insane. They like riots. This guy in the mayor of Portland, and he's out of his mind. He's trying to suck up to those people, and then they burned out. They started a fire in his. I just can't understand what the mentality is. The whole pro riots, pro ridiculous. I mean, it makes no sense at all. I mean, you got to people. Maybe they just took too many prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs or something.
Probably the latter.
Yeah. Okay, I want to let you go, Mike. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. I understand there were, Booker T. Washington and people like Frederick Douglass and this, but where is all this where these blacks invented all this stuff? I mean, the Reverend, who had a radio show on the program there, Reverend, oh my God, it's slipping my, his name is slipping my mind right now. But he pointed out, and I believe he was from New York, Manning, Pastor Manning.
Okay.
And he pointed out that they never had a two-story building. Now, where is this where they come up with the elevator? Because my history tells me that it was Horatio Otis. The Otis elevator, famous name.
Otis invented a mechanism to keep the elevator from falling if the cable snapped.
Okay, well, I have seen it credited to where he invented the elevator. Okay, let me ask you this.
History has given credit for inventions to a lot of the wrong people. A good example, I mean, if you read my article on Viking and Dr. Gilbert Levin, it starts out with a prologue about all the wrong people who've been credited for inventions. The Wright brothers got the credit for the first powered flight, but a man named Frederick Whitehurst beat them to it by about a year.
Yeah, I understand that, but okay, well, let me just put it in these parameters then. Where did these oppressed, slave, downtrodden people get all these resources to create these inventions? If that's, I mean, you can't have.
They may not have been slaves at the time they created the inventions. I mean, the guy who did the harpoon was, but then he was working in a blacksmith shop that was provided by his owner.
Okay, well, let me go. Let's get back to the elevator. I just wanted to ask this because the forerunner to the elevator was the dumbwaiter. Is that correct?
No, they kind of came in together. The dumbwaiter is just a smaller elevator used not for things other than people.
Yeah. Now, who was responsible for that? Do you offhand? I would guess you would know.
No, actually, I don't know who was responsible for saying, let's make a tiny elevator for food service.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you might know. But anyway, yeah, I think back to Black Lives Matter and Antifa and these outfits, until they're declared some type of terrorist organization, that's when we're going to get to the bottom of this. And that's way past it. I mean, way past due. All the police that have been injured, the just general citizenry that have been injured, downright assaulted, you could just say assassinated, until they are declared something. And like you had mentioned, the Patriot Act, there's so many provisions for this stuff. They're interfering with political beliefs and so on and so forth. And until that happens, we're going to continue. This is going to continue to spiral out like this. I mean, it's to the point now to where no matter what type of criminal they were, if they're of some color and they have a weapon, and the police make mistakes here and there, but all the time now, and then we find out later, like that movie by I'm trying to think of the guy's name that put it out about Trayvon Martin and that incident. They actually had Black Lives Matter people on the jury. So I mean, there's no laws, rules, or regulations being followed here at all, and they're certainly not uniform and distributed in a fair and fashionable manner. I mean, until we have that, I don't see how we're going to contain this or eliminate it. And and that's exactly the term. It should have been eliminated a long time ago, because it's just so far out of control. It's a threat to the civilization now at this point. These trucks stop coming into these cities and stop bringing supplies, and what's going to happen in that case.
Yeah. Well, like that other caller said, we're trying to delineate between, the black population that is part of this country and they're contributing and they're trying to build better lives for themselves, and these Black Lives Matter radicals who in some cases, apparently are being paid to be this way, who just out there with this attitude that they're owed for something that happened to their ancestors over 100 years ago.
Well, is this going to be a bidding war between Trump and the stimulus and Black Lives Matter and Soros's paid rent a riot? You know, I mean, whatever it is, whatever it is, we've got to solve this puzzle, because this is just you know, it's just insane what's going on. And you know, blacks are what, 13% of the population,
Something like that.
I would say that the 13%, I would say you probably have 3% that are active in this type of subculture. I know for a fact, I know many black people that I travel through with business and things like that, and none of them, they all think this is absolutely ridiculous. There was a legislator on the National Review had an article, a black legislator, and he said he is absolutely embarrassed. He was a state legislator from Tennessee, I believe, John DeBerry. And in the article, he was just saying how absolutely ashamed he was of these people, and how, and it is true that they are very un-American. Their activities and their actions are un-American. You know what? You know, even in the 60s and the 70s, blacks, whites, and the people, they got together and they worked through tragedies and they worked through, you know, a multitude of issues. And now it's like there's that certain little faction there that's trying to put each other at everybody's throat. And it just needs to end for the goodness of this nation. And with that, I'll tell you, thank you, Michael, and have a great show.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to let you go and switch over to Milton in Pennsylvania. Hello, Milton. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hello, Mike. With this Antifa, Black Lives Matter and all, I'm taking on a real harsh attitude with these people. If, God forbid, they ever hurt one of my family members, I can guarantee you, I'm a small guy, but I'm going to take out 20 or 30 of them before they ever get me.
Okay.
I'm really pissed. And I feel, you know what? Somebody gets their house burned down, you know what? I have no pity on them because nobody's standing up doing anything. What are you going to do? Wait for it to burn up the whole neighborhood? And you're going to say, somebody help me? No, there's only one person going to help you, and that's yourselves.
We're being told to let the police protect us and the National Guard protect us, but they're not there.
Police ain't doing nothing. They're all standing down.
Not. I was in Los Angeles for the Rodney King riots, and I remember the first thing we saw on TV was the LAPD running like hell. I shouldn't use words like that on this radio.
No, you need to vent too. I mean, this is plain insanity. How long before the people finally get it in their head? Nobody going to help you but yourselves.
Yes, it's starting to happen.
You know, I know that they just had an incident in our little city here in Easton, Pennsylvania. 3 guys and a girl beat up on older people that were eating out because you can only eat outside here. And it's ridiculous. It better not be my woman. I'll go to jail the rest of my life or be mowed down and being shot, but I'm taking somebody out. That's guaranteed.
Okay.
And you know what? If 100 million people in the country felt like that, this shit would stop in 2 seconds.
Tell him I said to tell his lovely wife, Claire, hi for Starfire.
Starfire says to say hello to your honey.
I will pass that along.
Okay, that's enough venting, okay? I know people out there, some of them's got to vent too. This is bullshit.
Yes, it is.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you
for letting me go.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are now completely open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. A D.C. Circuit Court, the appeals court, has denied Michael Fling's request to order a federal judge to dismiss the criminal information against him, overturns the earlier panel ruling in Flynn's favor, and has denied a writ of mandamus. So, the railroad continues, unfortunately. They do. All righty. There's apparently Tesla stock is up. Actually, the market was up today. Investors realize they can now buy brand new shares and not used shares. I don't know why that would be significant, but that definitely would be. Trump's ICE enforcement deports 2,000 plus rapists, child molesters, murderers, and abusers. Okay. And here's another question. Along with the leaders of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, why haven't Kyle Rittenhouse attackers been arrested and charged? I mean, supposedly it's known who they are, but the case shows the incredible power of prosecutors to decide who will be charged and who will not. The voters have the ultimate authority to place or remove prosecutors. Prosecutors are almost never removed unless their crimes are blatant. Now, apparently, Kamala Harris was on Colbert and basically says, everyone beware, they're not going to stop. She gave an explicit endorsement of left-wing terrorism during a recent appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The lady who hopes to be the next vice president of the United States said that the left-wing shock troops aren't going to stop and is urging for everyone to beware of the ongoing terror rampage gripping the nation. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones now to Dan in Washington State. And Dan, I'm going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Oh, okay, thanks. I don't know how much time I got before the break is, but
About a minute.
The caller from Massachusetts, I would highly recommend you. There's a website called White Rabbit Radio, and there's a little podcast called The Mantra on there. And it's helpful with terminology. Instead of using words like race traitor, we kind of settled on one called anti-white. There's also The Right Stuff, Fascination, Stormfront Radio. These are they're better outlets for these topics, and they're more concerned with white advocacy and white rights.
Okay, Dan, stay on the line. I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. And welcome back to our show. Here we're talking with Dan in Washington State, and Dan is going on about how, every ethnic group, every diverse group in the United States seems to have organizations to protect it, except the white males, and specifically the white heterosexual males.
Yeah, exactly. That is the root of the problem. And I just wanted to say there was a party being formed called the National Justice Party, and it's being formed by Eric Stryker and Mike Enoch, who are being sued after Charlottesville, totally false charges. And a lot of the people with these suits going after these guys from Charlottesville are actually dual Israeli citizens. So you have dual Israeli citizens suing white activists here in America, which is ridiculous. But yeah, that's the root of the problem. So I just I don't waste my time with people like Alex Jones anymore. He was good for a while, but and I think you left him because he just starts lying and he's just disingenuous, and you just gotta watch out for.
I left Genesis because we disagreed. I disagreed with Jones on the subject of Israel.
Yeah, and it kind of comes out where he's totally hypocritical on that issue, and he'll come out and say the Chinese run the media, the Chi-Coms and all this. It's like deflection,
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of these deflections. Even I could say libertarian or all these reform, all these parties come up and they all just get dissolved and disappeared because they're not just addressing the key issue, which is you're not allowed to have white advocacy. So I just wanted to bring that up, and like Black Lives Matter, even these Republicans, they don't just come out and address these issues defending white people. Like, you could bring up affirmative action. You've had that for 50 years if you want to talk about systemic racism, but they just don't say that stuff plainly, So, but yeah, I would promote. I hope that listener, White Rabbit Radio. The Mantra has a lot of good talking points to deal with some of these people. I don't know if you've heard of Fascination, but he's been doing some great historical deep dives on American history. Some of them are on YouTube. So yeah, and The Right Stuff and Stormfront. That's all I pretty much listen to, just because everybody else is just avoiding the point. I like this show too. This is more of a general show, but at least people can call in and, express themselves. And I appreciate it. And most of the shows on Republic, and in Rents Radio I listen to. So that's all I had to say. Thanks for taking the call.
All right, thanks an awful lot.
Appreciate
We're
it.
going to let you go, and the phone lines are now open, 800-313-9443. And getting back to the news here, Ron Paul is saying that Trump must back his Iraq withdrawal promise with action. And yes, General Odom was right. It was a strategic disaster. Turning the U.S. into a global military empire is also a strategic disaster. Trump's promise to bring troops home from overseas wars sounds very good, but it's time to see some real action. This might mean some people who disagree with the president need to be fired. Apparently over in Germany, they're having an anti-lockdown protest that tried to storm the Reichstag. So it's getting intense over there. All righty, skipping on down here. We were talking about Kamala Harris was on Late Show with Stephen Colbert, basically saying, everyone beware, they ain't going to stop, or they aren't going to stop here. Apparently, the mayor of Philadelphia is in hot water. He's basically ordered that Philadelphia's restaurants can only serve outside. They can't have interior dining. And then he was photographed having a sit-down dinner in a restaurant in another state. And so everybody's kind of a little upset with him over that one here. Okay. Apparently, pardon me, a Target employee is under fire after reportedly filming the creation of a fake Starbucks beverage with extremely toxic ingredients, all in the name of police protests. And people, you gotta calm down. You really do have to calm down and start behaving more. So that's what we're losing. We're losing our civilization. It's being eroded and ground away day by day by all of this action. Okay. You know, there's some stories that normally I wouldn't cover, but there seem to be a lot of them today, and it's about all this child porn stuff and you know, these arrests of child traffickers and everything, and it just makes me ill. It makes me very, very ill. All righty, phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Now, if you go to whatreallyhappened.com on the main page up toward the top, I have posted several articles detailing black inventors, including black inventors who were denied patents for their invention. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to James in Charlotte. Hello, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Good afternoon, Mike. Yeah, I wanted to give you some information on a video presentation I think that you would find really informative, and I can send you a link to it, and hopefully that a lot of the listeners would find informative. It's an extensive interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yes.
And it really, the main points, the most salient points are concerning the politics of vaccine. And as you know, he has sort of been disowned by his own family because of his stance on vaccines. That
yes.
This interview, what I found so interesting about it is why, well, it goes into why vaccines are exempt from almost all federal regulation. It's because they really came about in terms of through the military. And he goes into the fact that they are, the fact that vaccine producers are not only are very loosely regulated, but are completely immune from any lawsuits.
Yes, you have to go through the vaccine court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, even though it does touch on some other topics. The main points were about the politics of vaccines, and it's unfortunate that RFK Jr. does have a bit of a speech disorder that I forget what it's called. I think it's similar to his Rose Kennedy. It's kind of a stuttering. It's to some degree, but at any rate, the reason why he was not basically dropped, he was, Trump had talked about putting him in charge of studying. I forget exactly what it was that he was to have some role in the Trump administration, but
Trump had campaigned on having a vaccine safety commission, but that was almost immediately disbanded, and Robert Kennedy just basically has gone on being Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, well, he mentioned that something over, I think, about $1.5 million was given to Trump's inaugural fund by the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes,
and that's when he just completely dropped the idea of the vaccine commission. Well, anyway, like I said, I can send you a link to it, or you can search it. There are a number of interviews.
I would appreciate it if you would send me the link. I would appreciate it if you send me the link.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here. I mean, the vaccine lobby is very, very powerful. And as James was saying, the vaccine makers are indemnified from lawsuits. You have to go through the vaccine court. And it's, when you have somebody who can't be sued for making mistakes and you are ordered to use their product, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. And we keep hearing these stories about how Gardasil causes narcolepsy, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and various other ills. And I have one doctor who has implied that the condition I'm dealing with might be vaccine related as well. Even though I tend to avoid vaccines, I've had a few in my life here. Anyway, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And I've got these two stories, and they really kind of bother me. This one is from Tefasta.com, and it's basically a registered repeat sex offender allegedly chases down naked teen boy, executes him in the street. And the story is basically, this was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it involves a guy who was a lifetime, a sex offender in the Pennsylvania Megan's Law Registry for involuntary deviant sexual intercourse. And apparently he was chasing this naked boy down the street. The boy was calling to people along there, help me, help me. He's tried to rape me. And this guy just gunned him down. And you have to wonder, how did we even get to this point where such people, first of all, if he's a repeat sex offender, why does he even have a gun? And is nobody keeping an eye on this guy so that he's not going out there and offending again? And then we have this other one that's from Australia about this pervert who sent child porn involving sex acts with animals to an undercover cop. And that's the good news, because he got jailed for 9 months. So I've seen more and more of these stories lately, and I don't get it. I really do not get it. What's going on in the minds of these people. There's got to be some bad wiring, I think. There's got to be some really, really bad wiring. All righty, getting into some other news here. Let's see. Chicago shootings and homicides dropped nearly 50% in August as city changes policing strategy. Chicago saw a marked decrease in the number of shootings. I don't know. They had 10 fatalities this last weekend. And homicides in August, according to numbers released by the Chicago Police Department Tuesday, marking the first month since the end of the coronavirus-related lockdown where gun violence has actually ticked down. Okay, good. Let's see. We talked about this Democratic data firm. Biden is flip-flopping on the issue about banning fracking. He's campaigning now saying he's not going to ban fracking. He never said that, blah, blah, blah. But if you go back a few years ago, yes, he was talking about banning fracking, talking about just shutting it down here. And here's an interesting statistic. The suicide rate for men reaches its highest level in 2 decades. This is in Great Britain, with 5,691 deaths in 2019, while the number of 10 to 24-year-old women taking their own lives has almost doubled since 2012. I guess things are not so good in jolly old England. Okay. Trump is catching a lot of flack for trying to defend Kyle Rittenhouse, saying he was trying to get away from him. I guess he probably would have been killed. Phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And getting back to more news here, as soon as the page turns. Okay. We seem to have an internet hang up here. There we go. All right. Apparently, Trump fans are going to have a huge Trumptilla, meaning a boat flotilla on Potomac River over Labor Day weekend, which of course is coming up very, very soon. And it's a mark of that enthusiasm for the re-election of President Donald Trump that people are starting to notice. It isn't that people want to vote for him. They enthusiastically want to vote for him. And again, we have that Biden favoring analytical firm saying Trump is probably going to appear to win on election day by a landslide, but when all of those mail-in votes are counted, days or weeks afterwards, that's going to reverse the contest. I mean, this is the stupidest way to run an election you can imagine, where, the votes will be counted even if they didn't show up on election day. And that means that people can just be, putting together fake mail-in ballots. And we had that Democratic operative who blew the whistle and said, yeah, that's the norm. Mail-in ballots are how the Democrats cheat. And like I said, if they do that, if Trump wins the election on election night, and then a week later they say, oh, it was actually Biden because of the mail-in votes, I think there's going to be repercussions. I don't want to see it, but I think it would be unavoidable at this point here. All righty. Why the state seeks to abolish both tradition and history. Today, our society is racked by germinal totalitarians eager to destroy history. Ostensibly, this is in the name of justice, but this destruction and historical desecration are little more than a tactic for securing power for themselves. America is supposedly infected on the genetic level with unforgivable sins of racism and oppression, and those seeking to destroy history conveniently have the solution. Hand over power to them to facilitate our collective re-education and penance. By failing to recognize the important role that tradition serves by preserving historical consciousness, we aid and abet the rise of the forces currently seeking the complete overthrow of our society and the complete annihilation of our rights and liberties. Okay. Apparently up in Oakland, Black Lives Matter protesters are marching through the streets shouting death to America. Grab them all up, put them on planes, and ship them to Iran. Okay. According to the mainstream media, if you try and defend yourself against Black Lives Matter and Antifa, then you are the villain. And it's pretty much become the standard method of operation of the mainstream media in the age of elevating Black voices. No matter what the BLM and Antifa mobs do, whether it involves destruction or violence or death, it is justified as a demonstration of protest. It's even been called peaceful by CNN. And no matter what those being targeted do to try and defend themselves, it's dubbed as aggression and racism. The media, in other words, is complicit in the violent destruction of America at the hands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, glorifying its members as heroes while decrying patriots as part of the problem. Pay close attention to how the narratives are written and see for yourself the way that self-defense is quickly becoming an act of terrorism in the eyes of the far-left corporate media. Apparently, porn star Ron Jeremy is in trouble again. And not that I was ever a big fan, of course, but apparently he's been hit with 20 new counts of sexual abuse, and detectives have been going through his trash-filled apartment. Apparently, he looks like a hoarder. I saw an article a while back, the first time they served a warrant on him, and his place is a mess. Just really a mess. I mean, not like this mess you see behind here, but I mean a real mess here. Here's an article. This is coming out of patriotrising.com. Have the first shots been fired in the next American Civil War? And they're talking about Kyle, and they're talking about the other gentleman, Aaron Danielson. And now, of course, we have those gangs that are out there. They say they're going to kill cops who pull a gun. Talked about NPR here. Portland's emasculated far-left mayor blames Trump for out-of-control violence in his city after a Trump supporter was shot and killed by an Antifa terrorist. Okay. In science and technological news, after decades of teasing and disappointment since Star Wars: A New Hope took to the big screen in 1977, it appears the world may soon finally have proper holograms following a breakthrough by Japanese researchers. Using metasurface materials which manipulate light at the nanoscale, a team of scientists at the Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology have created a bona fide 3D hologram visible from multiple viewing angles in respectable quality. Well, that will be interesting to see. Make for interesting devices at the consumer level. And once again, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Okay, apparently over in Chicago, 51 cops have been shot at or shot so far this year. So Chicago is a violent place here. Now, the National Football League, in an ultimate pander, if you will, is going to inscribe their end zones with two slogans. It takes all of us on one end line and end racism on the other. So they're going social justice here. Okay. Apparently over at Amazon, the employees have another reason to be upset. Amazon spies on the staff and fires them by text for not hitting secretive targets. Workers feel forced to work through pain and injuries. Amazon is famous for its extreme efficiency, yet behind the curtain is a crippling culture of surveillance and stress, according to a study by the Open Markets Institute. I think they'd be well advised to look at some of the studies that were done on post office workers following those mass shootings, from which the phrase "going postal" came. Anyway, the think tank and advocacy group that repeatedly takes companies like Google and Facebook to task warned in the report that Amazon's retail side has gone far beyond promoting efficient working and has adopted an almost dystopian level of control over its warehouse workers, firing them if they fail to meet targets that are often kept a secret. Among the practices it highlighted, the report said that workers were told to hit a target rate of packages to process per hour, though they were not told what exactly that target is. We don't know what the rate is, one pseudonymous worker told the authors. They change it behind the scenes. You'll know when you get a warning. They don't tell you what rate you have to hit at the beginning. Over in Kenosha, owner of a torched business rails against officials. Nobody did nothing about it, which, despite the bad English, is basically saying, yeah, Kenosha was allowed to burn. And now those poor people are stuck having to pay for the demolition of what's left of their buildings before the insurance company will pay for a new building. And it's great that Donald Trump threw a few million at them, but it's really just a drop in the bucket of what they need. Now, Blue Lives Matter had a rally in Kenosha that truly was peaceful. And it's pushing back against the narrative that the conservatives are the violent ones here. Let's see. Okay, apparently over this last weekend, NASA's OGO-1 satellite, which was launched in 1964, finally deorbited and came down in a spectacular series of sparks and disintegrated, and it was caught on video. I remember we had a satellite that came down over Oahu not too long before we moved. That was really quite spectacular as well. Okay, Tucker Carlson is out there accusing Joe Biden of threatening America. Vote for me or your cities will burn. Apparently, there's a story where a homeless man had his dog Shaggy stolen and is trying to get the dog back. Who would do that to somebody? Steal the guy's dog? I mean, homeless or not, really. Anyway, getting back to Portland, apparently a lot of businesses are not going to rebuild. And apparently businesses are fleeing the city's downtown area due to the nightly Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioting. It's been, what, 95 days? 3 months? Yeah. After a while, you start saying, maybe it's time to relocate the business. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. Back to the last segment of our program after these two words Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. And welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today here. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Apparently, 2 Michigan paramedics have had their licenses suspended after they declared a 20-year-old woman with cerebral palsy dead, and then 2 hours later at the funeral home, she opened her eyes. So 20-year-old Tamisha Beauchamp, who has cerebral palsy, was declared dead, but was found alive at the Detroit area funeral home. And paramedics had responded to Beauchamp's home after a relative said she was unconscious and possibly not breathing. Officials said they performed life-saving measures for 30 minutes, checked Beauchamp's vital signs 3 times before asking a doctor to declare her dead. 2 EMTs who responded to the call are also facing possible license suspension. Beauchamp's family claims the first responders were negligent. Officials say they followed proper protocol. Beauchamp is reportedly hospitalized in critical condition. It's just a reminder that they can make mistakes out there. Anyway, we're going to grab our phone call for the day. Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Dustin, are you there? Okay, he said he was having internet problems. Okay, Dustin, I guess, is not there. All righty. Okay, we already talked about the Democrat insider, talking about how mail-in ballot fraud is a very, very real situation here. Okay. Most people won't get the flu jab until December, despite government drive to widen screen to 30 million people in a bid to take pressure off the National Health Service hospitals in the winter. This is in Great Britain here. Story coming out of Investment Watch blog. You think it's bad now? The real chaos is dead ahead. Apparently, when Trump was handing out autographs to some of the first responders in Kenosha, he was caught on a microphone saying, "You can sell it tonight on eBay." Kind of crass there. Hey, did Dustin ever come back? I guess not. Nope. All righty. So let's go back to here. Possibly up to 90% of COVID positive Americans were not even contagious. This is coming out of the New York Times, published Saturday, revealed that the novel coronavirus is not nearly as contagious as the American people were initially led to believe by experts. They're starting to back off on this horrific new plague idea that we were being sold. Mike Huckabee is out there saying this year's March on Washington betrayed the spirit of Dr. King's message. Yes, it did, because Martin Luther King Jr., everything that he did was with a peaceful protest. He followed the Gandhi approach. And this year's March on Washington, the speakers were all out there talking about violence and revolution and having to get in the face of people. And that's not how you win the public over to your particular point of view. Okay, there's the music. Time for us to get on out of here. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of things to share. Spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.